He moved like a phantom, always a step ahead. His presence was felt but rarely seen, a ghost in the urban jungle. The streets whispered his name, but few had ever laid eyes on him. He was a master of evasion, blending seamlessly into the shadows, leaving no trace behind. His movements were calculated, his steps deliberate, each one a part of a grander scheme that only he could see. His name whispered in hushed tones, a byword for power and ruthlessness. In the underworld, he was a legend, a figure of both fear and respect. Conversations about him were always conducted in whispers, behind closed doors, in the darkest corners of the city. His influence was pervasive, reaching into the highest echelons of power and the deepest pits of the criminal underworld. He was a man who commanded respect, not through brute force but through sheer cunning and intellect. Semion Mogilevich, the brain of the Russian Mafia, was more than just a gangster. He was a mastermind, a strategist who orchestrated some of the most complex and lucrative criminal operations in history. His intellect was his greatest weapon, allowing him to outmaneuver law enforcement and rival gangs alike. Mogilevich was a man of many faces, a chameleon who could blend into any environment, whether it was a high-stakes business meeting or a clandestine underworld gathering. He was a strategist, a businessman, a master manipulator who built a criminal empire that spanned continents. His operations were global, his reach extending from the streets of Moscow to the financial districts of New York and London. Mogilevich understood the power of globalization and used it to his advantage, creating a network of criminal enterprises that operated seamlessly across borders. He was a pioneer in the world of organized crime, a visionary who saw opportunities where others saw obstacles. His story is a chilling reminder of the dark underbelly of globalization, where fortunes are made in the shadows and justice often feels out of reach. In a world where money and power often go hand in hand, Mogilevich thrived. He exploited the gaps in the system, using his vast network of contacts to stay one step ahead of the law. His story is a testament to the dangers of unchecked power, and the lengths to which some will go to amass wealth and influence. Mogilevich's life reads like a crime thriller, filled with intrigue, violence, and audacious schemes. His rise to power was marked by a series of bold moves and ruthless decisions. He was a man who was not afraid to get his hands dirty, willing to do whatever it took to achieve his goals. His life was a constant game of cat and mouse with law enforcement, a high-stakes chess match where the stakes were life and death. He amassed a fortune estimated in the billions, all while evading the clutches of law enforcement agencies worldwide. His wealth was a testament to his cunning and resourcefulness, a symbol of his success in a world where few could survive, let alone thrive. Mogilevich's ability to stay one step ahead of the law was legendary, a testament to his strategic mind and his deep understanding of the criminal underworld. His story is not just about organized crime, it's about the dangerous nexus of power, money, and corruption that continues to shape our world. Mogilevich's life is a stark reminder of the dark side of globalization, where the lines between legitimate business and criminal enterprise are often blurred. His story is a cautionary tale, a reminder that in the shadows of our globalized world, there are those who will stop at nothing to achieve their goals, no matter the cost. Semion Mogilevich's story begins in the bleak streets of post-war Kiev, Ukraine. The city, ravaged by the aftermath of World War II, was a place where the scars of conflict were visible on every corner. Buildings lay in ruins, and the air was thick with the scent of survival. It was in this harsh environment that Mogilevich's character was forged. Born in 1946, he grew up in the shadow of conflict, a time when survival often trumped morality. The streets were his playground, and the lessons he learned were far from those taught in school. He witnessed firsthand the desperation and cunning required to navigate a world where resources were scarce and trust was a luxury few could afford. His sharp intellect, however, set him apart. Even as a child, Mogilevich displayed a keen mind and an insatiable curiosity. He devoured books and sought knowledge wherever he could find it. His teachers recognized his potential, and despite the chaos around him, he managed to excel academically. He excelled in school, even earning a degree in economics. This achievement was no small feat in a society where educational opportunities were limited and competition was fierce. His degree opened doors to a world of possibilities, but Mogilevich was not content with a conventional path. But Mogilevich was drawn to a different kind of business, one built on cunning and ruthlessness. The allure of the underworld, with its promise of power and wealth, was too strong to resist. He saw the criminal world as a chessboard, and he was determined to be its master.
My early ventures were small-time scams, exploiting loopholes in the Soviet system. I started with petty schemes, learning the ropes, and understanding the intricacies of the black market. Each scam was a lesson, each success a step closer to my ultimate goal. I quickly rose through the ranks of the burgeoning Russian criminal underworld. The 1980s were a time of great upheaval, and the old order was crumbling. New opportunities arose for those bold enough to seize them, and I was nothing if not bold. Unlike many of my contemporaries, I eschewed brute force. I believed that true power lay in strategy and intellect. While others relied on muscle and intimidation, I focused on building networks, forging alliances, and outsmarting my rivals. I believed in brains over brawn, using my intelligence to devise elaborate schemes that enriched my coffers and cemented my reputation. My operations spanned continents, and my influence grew with each successful venture. I became a ghost in the system, a mastermind whose reach extended far beyond the streets of Kiev.
Mogilevich's criminal empire was built on diversification and globalization. He was not just a local crime boss, he was a visionary who saw the potential of a global network. His operations were meticulously planned and executed, ensuring that his influence and reach extended far beyond the borders of any single country. He understood that the fall of the Soviet Union presented a unique opportunity, a chance to exploit the chaos and build a criminal network that transcended national borders. The disintegration of the Soviet state left a power vacuum, and Mogilevich was quick to fill it. He capitalized on the lawlessness and economic instability, recruiting former KGB agents and other skilled operatives to his cause. He moved into racketeering, arms trafficking, and drug smuggling, diversifying his criminal portfolio to minimize risk and maximize profit. Each of these ventures was carefully chosen for its high profitability and the relative ease with which they could be integrated into his existing operations. His racketeering operations extorted money from businesses and individuals, while his arms trafficking deals supplied weapons to various conflict zones, establishing a network that stretched from Russia to Israel, Europe, and even North America. This global reach allowed him to tap into different markets and evade law enforcement by constantly shifting his base of operations. His network was a complex web of interconnected cells, each operating semi-independently, but all ultimately answering to him. Mogilevich's genius lay in his ability to launder the proceeds of his illicit activities through legitimate businesses. He invested in banks, using them as fronts to clean his dirty money. By owning financial institutions, he could move large sums of money without raising suspicion. His investments were not limited to banks. He also had stakes in various industries from real estate to manufacturing, casinos and nightclubs, which served as perfect venues for money laundering. These establishments generated large amounts of cash, making it easier to mix illicit funds with legitimate earnings. The nightlife industry, with its high turnover and cash-based transactions, was particularly suited to his needs, creating a complex web of shell companies and offshore accounts that masked his ill-gotten gains. These shell companies were often registered in tax havens, making it difficult for authorities to trace the money back to him. Offshore accounts added another layer of complexity, ensuring that his financial activities remained hidden from prying eyes. This sophisticated money laundering operation allowed him to amass a fortune and operate with impunity. His wealth and influence bought him protection and loyalty, both from within his organization and from corrupt officials. Mogilevich's empire was a testament to his strategic brilliance and his ability to adapt to changing circumstances. He was not just a criminal, he was a master strategist who built an empire that continues to influence the global underworld to this day. Perhaps Mogilevich's most audacious scheme was the YBM Magnex affair, a brazen Wall Street swindle that bilked investors out of an estimated $150 million.
YBM Magnex, ostensibly a magnet manufacturer, was in reality a giant stock scam. The company's shares, traded on the Nasdaq Stock Exchange, were artificially inflated while Mogilevich and his associates pocketed millions.
The YBM Magnex scandal sent shockwaves through the financial world, exposing the vulnerability of global markets to organized crime. It also cemented Mogilevich's reputation as a criminal mastermind, a man who could operate with ease in the boardrooms of Wall Street just as he did in the shadowy underworld. Despite his notoriety and the global reach of his criminal empire, Semion Mogilevich remained a ghost-like figure. He shunned publicity and avoided the trappings of wealth that ensnared many of his contemporaries.
This elusiveness, coupled with his cunning and ruthlessness, made him a formidable adversary for law enforcement.
Mogilevich cultivated an aura of fear and respect. He surrounded himself with a tight-knit circle of loyalists and was rumored to have informants within law enforcement and intelligence agencies. His ability to stay one step ahead of the authorities earned him the moniker the Teflon Don, as accusations seemed to slide right off him. Mogilevich's power extended far beyond the criminal underworld. He understood that true influence lay in cultivating relationships with those in positions of power.
He forged alliances with corrupt politicians, influential oligarchs, and even high-ranking members of intelligence agencies.
These connections provided him with protection, access to information, and the ability to influence decision-making at the highest levels. This web of influence allowed him to operate with impunity, his criminal activities often overlooked or even facilitated by those who were supposed to be bringing him to justice.